The idea, insight, or secret you need for massive impact is just moments away. It's time to claim your career crown. The podcast where business owners and entrepreneurs share the keys to the kingdom to help you open the vault to your greater success. Hello, and welcome to Claim Your Career Crown. And I'm your host, the Strategic Sales Queen, Lynn Whitbeck. And today I'm joined by our wonderful guest, Dondi Dix. And Dondi and I are going to be talking about the hidden power moves every CEO needs to beat cash flow pressure. And I am super excited for this conversation because cash flow pressure can quietly strangle growth, stall innovation, and shake even the most confident leaders. And overcoming it might feel impossible, especially without major resources. So here's the thing. Today, Dondi's going to reveal the hidden, no-cost moves that help CEOs rein control and boost financial momentum. Now, if you love the show, if you love the episode, I'd like to invite you to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review, and would very much appreciate it. So let me give you some information about Dondi. She is an executive and fractional chief transformation, growth, and people officer with over 25 years of experience helping organizations align leadership, people, and systems to drive scalable performance. As part of the Proper Group Executive, she partners with companies navigating growth, M&A, and cultural change, drawing on a career that includes leadership roles in Lockton, T-Mobile, and other global and private equity-backed firms. Wow. So, Dondi, I'm so thrilled to have you here today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, let's get right to it. And because, just for some background, what got you interested in helping leaders manage cash flow pressure and business growth challenges?
Honestly, it was necessity. What happened was I started out my career, as my bio alluded to, in big business. And then I found myself in a position to buy a small business. And when I did that, even though it was an established business, I found out that all of the networks that I had and a lot of the assumptions that I had, especially in operational areas, were not the same between big business, middle market, and small business. And so I immediately found out that there was a lot that I didn't know. And I have set myself on an odyssey for the past several years now, finding out all the things that I didn't know, and talking to other small business leaders as well as middle market leaders who were struggling the same as I was. And I found out that the network of support and how all this works, not only is it relatively hidden and unknown, but this crosses so many different industries, and we all were experiencing the same things, from COVID to strangled growth to mergers and acquisitions, and just feeling like sometimes you cannot breathe.
Yeah.
So I started uncovering little gems along the way, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of those nuggets that I learned the hard way. So I'm an evangelist now because I do not want others to struggle and to wander around in the wilderness like I did for quite some time while I was figuring this out.
All right. So you're going to give us the good news. So when companies start to feel cash flow strain, let's dive into what's really going on beneath the surface.
Yeah. So, I find that a couple of things happen. Number one is just simple overwhelm.
Yeah.
So, for me, I've always been a bottom line optimization, earnings kind of person. And without question, when I became a CEO for the first time, I surrounded myself with CEO peer networks. And all of us were talking about the same kinds of themes that would come up again and again. And the level of frustration and saying, well, I've done all the obvious things. I've done everything. They look at their profit and loss statement and they say, but I truly have done everything, all the tried and true advice that everyone is telling me that I need to do. And yet I can't increase my earnings. And as we all know, sometimes you can't just sell yourself or top growth your way out of a bottom line problem.
Yeah.
And so, so over time, I think out of necessity and out of a certain amount of creativity, and those that had an appetite for it, we all started trading notes, and we started finding some particular themes of to where to find hidden cash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is actually, I'm really intrigued about this because this is one of those things that when you're looking at, it's like, okay, well, do we cut costs? Do we raise prices? Well, you're talking about something totally new.
Hmm.
And this is where you talk about the hidden power moves. And I really want to know more. And what do those look like in practice?
Absolutely. So I'll give you some great examples. So a lot of people say, well, I've got cash pressure. Maybe I have too much payroll cost,
Yeah.
because that's obviously one of the biggest line items for a lot of people, right? Yes, insert screaming sound effect here, right? The dreaded payroll line item. And because I was a chief HR officer, for a while, and I've been in HR for much of my career. The idea of just handing out pink slips or reducing headcount without really thinking about it thoughtfully first, about you don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah.
We That's probably not the first place to look. I mean, certainly if there are inefficiencies, you have to go there. But I thought, no, what are the other things we can do?
Yeah.
So, for example, through a lot of my advisory board work and through talking to a lot of very, very smart people that do this day in and day out, when it comes to payroll and people costs, there's actually things that you can do without changing your benefits, just literally adding an overlay of additional benefit enrichment that then allows you to get $600 back per person on as an offset on your FICA. Well,
Ah,
that can be really huge if you start going, 600 times, oh, I have 200 employees. Well, what is that? It's like
yeah.
that can move the needle pretty quickly, and those savings start day one. So in that case, it's just an additional program that can be implemented, but because of the tax offsets, you actually are able to move the needle on your people. Other areas, though, because we all know it's not just about payroll. One of my favorite examples really is the idea of a technology audit. And everybody has IT partners,
Yeah.
absolutely. Some of them are able to get you some volume discounts on some of the things that you do. However, in my experience, and again, on going on this treasure hunt, I've found that there are really only two or three premier shops in the country that can specialize in doing this, and they are completely vendor agnostic. So, whatever the issue is, and across and down and deep into your technology stack, they can look, give you that recommendation, and then without costing you anything, they can then turn around, find those dollars, in some cases, many dollars. That then, sure, they'll take a little percentage off of it. Most of the solutions that I'm referring to actually they're a revenue share play, where if there's savings to be found, they'll take a fee. If not, they won't. So it never costs you anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I like about these examples too is it's really about extending the capabilities of your team and having a specialized army behind you that you never knew existed, that absolutely wants to go out and find this and advocate on your behalf, regardless of what cost category that we're talking about. And in return, they're also not getting in your pocket like a traditional consulting firm, which is
Yeah.
also nice because, a lot of times your P&L won't support that, right, Lynn? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I also like the idea that, because I mean, even in a very small business, I've seen looking at the technology, and sometimes there's something that you can shift to and you can eliminate other things. And another thing is that, of course, from a sales perspective, is what is a direct activity that brings business in the door? So, what's a direct activity that's supporting the sales? And what are activities that you're doing that you either it's almost invisible that you're seeing any benefit from? And how much time, energy, resources, cost is involved in those activities, and maybe you should be shifting some of those activities. And I think sometimes businesses can get so caught up in all the things that they have to be everywhere and doing everything. But where are their ideal clients? Where are they truly connecting with them? And what matters to them?
Yeah.
So, what are the activities that don't really have any kind of impact, but they're spending dollars on? Right. And so
Absolutely.
instead,
Yes.
they can redirect their team to be working on the areas that, okay, we can see a through line here and how we're getting people to come in and become clients to
Yeah.
generate revenue. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I'm always focused on sales, but I mean, I'm sure you've seen that.
I absolutely have. And, I always feel like it's very, very wise to focus on sales first. Do everything that you can to deal with the top of the funnel and do it well. And I know that you do it very, very well. But then after that, what you just spoke to is really where's all the leakage, what's happening, and
Yeah.
and people just do not have the time. We are all so overwhelmed. And it's like, I'd like to give a couple more juicy examples, and then I'll
Yeah.
just say like how we can all hit the easy button on this one
Okay.
so that people do not have to, spend years, like I have, trying to figure out where are all the places that people can treasure hunt to move their earnings. In a lot of cases, I've seen earnings movement 10, 12, 15% as a known change in 3 to 6 months,
Wow.
which can be very, very powerful. So again, we're not just talking about, pain in the rear end pennies here. We're
Yeah.
talking about if you take a methodical and an absolute top to bottom approach to what's going on in your P&L, and you just accept, what, I've now got this extended army of partners behind me to help me. That's due diligence.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite examples, because I knew nothing about reverse energy auctions, because guess what? They're not allowed in my state, but they are allowed in 32 states. And so as I started partnering with a lot of these specialists, they said, well, number one, there's some really good firms out there that do nothing but utility audits, and they can look at all of your utilities at the same time. So picture a company that just merged with another company, and now they've inherited all these warehouses or different properties, and it's here, there, and everywhere. And when was the last time that anybody had time to digest a light bill? It
Yeah.
just does not happen, right? But there are companies that specialize in that. So you can throw all of your utility bills or whatever it is over the wall, all kinds of ugly, and let the specialists do their, very sophisticated data crunching and come back and give you a better answer. So I mentioned reverse energy audits because if you happen to be in the 32 states where that's allowed, you can combine a utility audit with a reverse energy auction. And many people are reducing their overall utility cost, particularly power, by 20%.
Wow.
Yeah. And so see, again, when you're talking about double digit savings, that's when maybe taking one or two phone calls to rationalize that might be worth someone's time. But I know the last thing that anybody wants to do is chase down a bunch of these things that they don't have time to learn, which was exactly what happened to me.
Yeah.
So instead, I set about making sure that if I found out about a good partner, that everybody was vetted, and that I found out who all's doing this stuff. It's completely hidden market. Pull them all together and then come up with, let's play 20 questions.
Right.
It's really
Yeah.
just that simple. Let's play 20 questions to find money in your P&L that you didn't even know was there. And if the answers to some of those questions are relevant for that particular business, maybe they say, oh yeah, these 6 or 7 things, it absolutely applies to us. Well, great. Then we've narrowed it down. You meet your new friends, and money tends to fall out the bottom.
Yeah. I mean, another thing I would think would happen is like, especially with multiple locations, are consolidating some of the specific materials that could be used across the board, and how that could be. Um, I mean, I'm just thinking about it, So, but you
Sure.
tell us. I mean, because I think that what we're really getting to is that cash flow, and this cash flow pressure can be really difficult and a difficult challenge for CEOs to solve. So, what what other great idea do you have to share? Because that one about the power, that was terrific.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's if I thought it was going to be a 2% move the needle, who has time for that? But
Yeah,
when I've seen countless examples, of real significant savings, as well as a partner then you have on speed dial going forward. So every 3 years, when you need to reevaluate it, or if the situation has changed, they'll just go back in and just make sure that everything's still calibrated.
yeah,
So it's not just the immediate. They can go back 3 years and find you some money, but they can also watch you excel for the next several years. I think another example, something you just said, Lynn, cued me on this. You just mentioned buying things and the whole notion of the supply chain.
right.
I was absolutely fascinated, by a company who, and again, they're global, they're world class. No one knows their name, because they handle complex transactions when Citibank can't figure it out. I mean, they're just like deep specialists. But the reason I'm bringing them up is their tagline for small and medium sized businesses is very simple. They said, yeah, well, we can turn your accounts payable into a profit center. And I said, well, how on earth would someone do that? Because that just sounds like magic, right? That does
Yeah,
not compute. Well, and what they do is basically, and they can also drop check fraud through the floor at the same time. If anybody out there is still printing checks, I hope not. Um, choose a partner that can truly help you with all of the interbanking fees and all of that. Save you maybe a net 5% on your total AP spend. I'm not just talking about the transaction line. I mean across everything that you buy.
yeah,
And then you can redeploy that 5%, as Lynn, as you wisely said, into things that actually matter.
yeah,
And the good news is like everything else I'm going to mention, and this is sort of one of my criteria, to make sure that I'm working with the right people. Nope, you don't have to switch software. Nope, you don't have to switch processes. Everything is, either an overlay or an audit that's done on your behalf, because nobody has time to switch systems either. Not
yeah.
anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
huge. Yeah. I mean, there is though sometimes, you know, we both know situations where people are on a very old system and it has to change. And so an investment has to be made, and there will be efficiencies and effectiveness that are gained from that, but you have to go through, and it could be that you even need to evaluate, is that even the right system to stay on? So, I mean, those are obviously those are a big thing, but it's also like, what's that through line from where they are, and sometimes it requires some time and money and investment, but to get to the other side. So
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure that that will come up because there are times where you make an investment to get to another side so that you can, um, and in the long run, it's you're way better off.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that gets me up in the morning is helping people find the money to actually transform the systems that they do need to transform. But having been in that overwhelmed chair, if someone needs a new CRM, or if you do need to upgrade something, that's exactly where you should be spending your incremental dollars. But the last thing that anyone should be doing is to say, oh, I'm going to save you 5% everywhere else, somewhere else. And so therefore, but we need you to switch software and we need to add a lot of noise in the system. The executives get overwhelmed. The staff gets overwhelmed. No one wants that. So it
Yeah,
really just comes down to being able to make strategic bets, without adding a bunch of noise to your day.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes switching to another system because of the learning curve and some of the other things, it's actually you're not better off. You should just stay with optimize what you have and
Mhm.
stay. It's
Yep.
just the timing, it's just not the right time. And that's always a part that should always be included in the decision making process because it's disruptive.
Mhm.
Your team has to learn new things. And yeah, absolutely. I love that suggestion. So, um, I mean, we were talking about, why it's such a difficult challenge for CEOs to follow this cash flow pressure. But I also think there's another issue is that it can be a blind spot for many leaders, even those that are the most experienced. So can you speak to that?
Yes, and the blind spot I think is coming from two places. I absolutely agree that there's a blind spot. The first thing is just absolutely overwhelmed because you're focusing on only the things that matter right now, and the things that keep business leaders up at night. So therefore, it's really hard to optimize or to innovate around the edges on something when you don't even know if it's going to yield fruit or not. And
Yeah.
that's not fair. Like no one wants to go through an RFP process and go through a bunch of stuff and talk to a bunch of vendors that may or may not be able to deliver, and just spend a lot of time on a fool's errand.
Yeah.
So again, that's why when I started finding out that there really is a better way to do this, I was absolutely fascinated because I'd certainly never heard that before until I felt the pressure myself. So, when you say blind spot, I think part of it is just overwhelm, and you're trucking so hard on what you have to do that you don't have time to think about the art of the possible or time to innovate. And then you're just telling your CFO, find me some money somewhere, right? Like wherever it is, we've got growth pressure, or no one wants to find out that their next opportunity for growth passed them by because they didn't have the cash to execute on it to drive the top line growth that they need. It's excruciating. I mean, it's painful. So I think that's part of it. And the second is just the education piece, which is exactly why I'm pulling back the curtain a bit on some of this. People will find one point in time solution. And they'll go, I've got a guy that does this. I got a gal that does that. But then when you start putting it all together, then you've got something that can truly move the needle. So that's why, I work with over 25 key partners now that all specialize deep in their areas. And, in asking my 20 questions, then I find out which ones that the business truly needs, and
Right.
only that. Because I
Yeah.
would never want, number one, I do not want to perpetuate the ignorance. Like you said, Lynn, we don't know. Unfortunately, we don't know what we don't know. Um, and secondly, I don't want to perpetuate a situation where then you're creating stress in the system because you're adding a whole bunch more things that people need to do.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And whatever you're asking the right questions, and of course you have to, what are those questions? So figuring out what those questions are, and then it's the same. And what I do in sales, you've got to know what questions to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the whole process of figuring that out. So you've done all this work to figure out what are those questions that need to be asked. So then we can put the square peg in the square hole, right? And so,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, exactly. And so, I would invite anyone who's listening, who, contacts me. I would love to take you through those 20 questions. One of my other favorite examples was a hotel group who happened to have a lot of laundry and linen spend.
yeah,
Well, it's very particular to that industry. But
yeah,
for someone who works across all of the different laundry and linen uh, groups and is able to find, just based on contract errors, be able to reduce that spend by 15%. I was fascinated at how much laundry and linen spend actually goes through car dealerships, because a car dealership group has mats that end up with oil in them, and they've got to take them out to be specially laundered because, okay, that's gross, right? And maybe they've got uniforms and polos and people in their service departments too. But as soon as that line item gets above 100,000 a year, what does the savings look like there? So, I kind of feel like I've got a little something for everybody, but it's always a discovery process, and it's an absolute delight. Because
yeah.
when you find something like that, you literally felt like you were on an archaeological dig, and you were like digging down through layers, and you're just like, oh my goodness, guess what? Here's something that you didn't know was there, and I love to help. And then, you benefit from the savings of that. So I'll
Yeah.
do that every day of my life. So
So, what's one practical, no cost move that a CEO can make today to release some of the cash flow pressure? What would you recommend? Where would they start?
Well, first of all, if you haven't heard of any of the types of things that I'm talking about, get curious as well. The business community always needs to help
Yeah.
each other. Okay. But I will say, please call me. Please reach out to me. Because if that is what is on your mind right now, or if you're curious, I would love to spend the 10 minutes to get through the 20 questions and then see if something's really there. Because normally I can get somebody a quick high level estimate on whether or not the juice is worth the squeeze. And lately, I've always been able to find something. But it's not, it's not just about me. I consider myself a steward of the business community. And so if there are CEOs out there, operations people and finance people that are just absolutely frustrated, maybe we should talk to each other more.
Yeah.
And we can continue to figure this out.
Yeah. Absolutely. Very good. So is there a question you wish more CEOs would ask themselves when it comes to growth and financial health?
I don't know if it's a question so much as that inner voice of it's that feeling of don't feel trapped. Don't feel trapped. Breathe through it. It's possible that your next best alternative to whatever pressure you're feeling, because I certainly felt it when I bought my first business. Let's just say I had a lot of opportunity for cost optimization when I got into the business that I bought, and I uncovered a couple ugly things under a couple of ugly rocks. We've all felt that, but you have to breathe through it and, find people that can help. And I do feel like partnerships, extended networks, fractional advice, all of those things, not only is that good for the bottom line, but it just simply extends the power of all of us together as a business community. But, for those of us that have been there, just, don't give up. Don't give up. Don't get complacent, because even if you think, oh, I've done everything, it's like you're one conversation away from finding out that you can do more.
Yeah. Complacency is the absolute worst enemy. So absolutely. So Dondi, thank you so much for sharing the hidden power moves every CEO needs to beat cash flow pressure. And I know our listeners are going to want to know more about you and where they can connect with you. So let's hear it.
All right. Well, I believe that, Lynn, you're going to help me out by putting my links in the description here. And anyone can reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I'm going to make sure you also have my website and ways to contact me. So I look forward to every conversation. Let's find some money.
Well, they have been dropped into our ongoing chat. They're going to be in the post below. So whether you're watching us live or you're watching us and on YouTube later or on the audio, they're right there, a click away for Dondi. And I want to thank everyone who tuned in today and our listeners. We so appreciate you. And all these incredibly informative conversations. This one, Dondi, was exceptional. And I know it's going to add so much value. Thank you so much for being here.
I really appreciate it. Thank you, Lynn.
What was your biggest takeaway from this episode? I would love to hear about it. It's important to share the things you love. If you loved this episode, a 5-star review really helps keep the podcast coming to you regularly. Also, if you want to get more sales strategies to grow your business, make sure you subscribe right now. If you want to get results even faster, I invite you to download my sales strategy checklist at petitetoqueen.com/checklist. This has been Lynn Whitbeck, host of Claim Your Career Crown. I'll see you next time.